Welcome back everyone, it's Charlie. This will be my new Luke Skywalker Mandalorian Season 3 video. A lot of people asking what's going on with him right now in the timeline since Grogu left, so I'll explain because he's still a really big part of the story. Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni have teased him coming back, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, I'm doing videos for all the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get them. And I will do Ahsoka episodes later this year when it premieres too, because it will continue the story. Like, they'll have their own story, but all the shows in this part of the timeline are called the Mandoverse, so they're all meant to be connected and move around the same timeline, with a few exceptions. Jon Favreau confirmed at the beginning of The Mandalorian Season 3 that the timeline for each of the seasons was supposed to move close to real time, the same way things do in the Marvel movies. Jon Favreau famously said he's used his time working on the Marvel movies, the first two Iron Man movies. He was also executive producer on all the Avengers movies through Endgame. That when they created The Mandalorian and all the spin-off shows, they called it the Mandoverse, and they based the structure on the structure of how the MCU works together. So each season of The Mandalorian, the other shows, is meant to be about a year's worth of time. So in present day of Season 3, we're about 9 years after Return of the Jedi. Grogu was just with Luke Skywalker at his Jedi Academy on Ossus for about 2 years. And by the end of The Mandalorian Season 3, Grogu will have been away from Luke Skywalker for about a year. So not that much time has gone by. He hasn't been gone from Luke Skywalker for that long. Most of what has been happening on The Mandalorian, with the exception of going back to Coruscant in the core worlds, has been happening on this far right side of the Outer Rim, up and down. Like the Mandalore planet, the Mandalorian system, is way up here in the upper right-hand corner. That's near where Ossus is, Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy. But a lot of the events of The Mandalorian, especially the first couple seasons, took place way down here in the bottom right corner. Like Navarro, Tatooine, those planets are down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the galaxy. We make all the jokes about how the Armor's new planet is kind of like the Star Wars version of Jurassic Park. They're somewhere on a version of Jurassic Park, just getting eaten by animals every single week. So wherever that planet is, they'll probably reveal it later. It's probably somewhere else here in this part of the Outer Rim, like somewhere in the right-hand side of the galaxy. Originally, Luke Skywalker had planned for Grogu to become his first new student officially. He did train Leia briefly before she got pregnant with Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. There's no official date on when that happened, just a date range. The latest they list is around 11 years after Return of the Jedi. The way that Star Wars records dates too is a little bit different from the way Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni talk about it. If you look up Star Wars dates, they always list ABY, which is after the Battle of Yavin, which is about 4 years before Return of the Jedi. But every time Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau talk about dates for the Mandoverse shows, they always use Return of the Jedi as the point of reference. So for example, 9 years after Return of the Jedi, The Mandalorian Season 3 right now when things are happening, would be 13 years after the Battle of Yavin. So in about 2 years, we'll say Kylo Ren is born. So as of right now, on The Mandalorian Season 3, while Grogu is busy becoming a Mandalorian, getting his pieces of armor, Luke Skywalker's continuing to build his Jedi Academy on Ossus, finish physically constructing the actual buildings themselves, and he started training Leia. Like, Leia has not gotten pregnant yet. She's about 2 years out from Kylo Ren being born. They haven't featured her on The Mandalorian yet, but we just went to Coruscant again, which is a huge hub of the New Republic government. They revealed the New Republic's seat of government actually moved to Hosnian Prime. It used to be on Coruscant, so they haven't completely explained when that transition happened. Mon Mothma became the Chancellor of the New Republic after they formed out of the rebellion, and Leia has been her number two. Like, she served inside the New Republic government for many years. At this point, Luke Skywalker has not yet found any other Force-sensitive people to train. Like I said, he's still training Leia right now, like as we're talking. Once she left training to give birth to Ben Solo, that's when he started finding other children to train. So by the end of The Mandalorian Season 3, we're still about a year away from that happening. The events of the Ahsoka series, also just charting the next part of the timeline, will jump around a little bit in the timeline, but the present day of that series will take place right after the events of The Mandalorian Season 3, just because of the way all the Mandoverse shows are meant to move in real time. The Ahsoka series is unique in the fact that they're going to pull a House of the Dragon where they jump mid-season in the timeline, so there'll be a little bit of that takes place around Return of the Jedi, then they'll jump forward into present day. Grand Admiral Thrawn will be the main villain on Ahsoka. He's supposed to be the major crossover villain for all the Mandoverse shows eventually too. He's like the Thanos of the Mandoverse at this point in the Star Wars timeline. So that's why they're slowly teasing him out on The Mandalorian. They've been mentioning him a couple times. We'll see more Easter eggs for him during The Mandalorian Season 3, and eventually he'll show up on the Ahsoka series. At the end of the Book of Boba Fett, we saw Ahsoka had spent some time with Luke Skywalker and Grogu at his Jedi Academy. She wasn't there for all 2 years that Grogu was there. Like, she just visited. She'd been on that mission to find Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra for the past few years. That's what she'd been doing when we saw her during The Mandalorian Season 2, tracking down Morgan Elsbeth, the agent of Thrawn. She was looking for more information about his whereabouts. And that had been happening since the end of Return of the Jedi, since this moment here. We'll see a version of this in live action, like when I say Ahsoka is going to pull a House of the Dragon and jump in the timeline. At the beginning of the show, I believe we're going to see a version of this scene in live action. So when we saw her during Season 2 of The Mandalorian, she'd been looking for Thrawn and Ezra Bridger for almost 6 years. During this time, she briefly visits Luke Skywalker and Grogu just to check up on them. The reason why she told Mando that she couldn't be the one to train Grogu either, like why she pushed him towards Luke Skywalker, is because of the trauma of what happened with Anakin Skywalker and his fall to the dark side, becoming Darth Vader. She had so much PTSD that she hadn't fully gotten over yet that she wasn't willing to take a chance that could happen again with Grogu. They got into this during The Mandalorian Season 2, where she talked about sensing the same fear, the same vibe coming from Grogu that Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, the other Jedi Masters sense coming from young Anakin Skywalker. So if there could have been a 1% chance that the same fate could befall Grogu, she didn't want to take it. Ahsoka will continue to deal with her PTSD, Anakin Skywalker feelings during the Ahsoka series. Hayden Christensen is supposed to cameo in some way. They didn't say exactly how, so I'm assuming it's either a Force Ghost Anakin in present day, or a flashback to the Clone Wars, or a flashback of them facing each other when he become Darth Vader. Maybe if we're lucky, we'll get all three. That would be really cool. But when she visited Luke Skywalker and Grogu, she told Luke about her mission to find Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger. So now in present day, Luke knows about all the stuff that she's dealing with. He knows about Thrawn, he knows about Ezra Bridger. She leaves him saying, "May the Force be with you," and telling him that perhaps they'll see each other again.
Will I see you again?
Perhaps.
That's meant to mean that they will definitely see each other, like they were very on the nose about, like, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna bring Luke Skywalker back. They want to set up further cameo scenes like we saw during the Book of Boba Fett. And here's where we get to our major Thrawn crossover, where Luke Skywalker gets involved with the big battle against Thrawn in the endgame for all these Mandoverse shows. Luke is a big part of this, but for obvious reasons, they want to spend most of their time on all the shows developing Grogu, Mando, the Mandalorians in general as a people, Ahsoka, the crew of the Ghost, any other new characters they introduce like the Skeleton Crew characters. They don't want to keep going back to Luke, Leia, the legacy characters every 5 seconds. Like, we don't want to keep going back to Tatooine. But all those characters are still really important to the events that are happening in the galaxy right now, so they'll continue to be a part of them when it makes sense. That's the way that Dave Filoni talks about it. Like, does it make sense for this character to show up here? The reason Luke didn't know about Grand Admiral Thrawn before Ahsoka tells him everything is because for all of Luke's existence as a core part of the rebellion against the Empire, everything that's happened to him since A New Hope, Grand Admiral Thrawn has been lost in the unknown regions. And most of his colleagues in the Empire, his fellow officers, had even written him off as dead. Most assumed he'd never return and just forgot about him. So when Luke comes along in A New Hope, joins the rebellion with Obi-Wan Kenobi's push, nobody is talking about Thrawn, even the Empire. Luke never learns about him. In fact, most of the other Imperial officers hated Thrawn so much because he was better than them. The Emperor showed him so much favoritism. Even Darth Vader hated Thrawn and was happy to see him disappear, like one less person to challenge me for my supremacy. But now that Ahsoka has learned Thrawn has returned, the threat of the 7th Fleet is back, the Empire's resurging, trying to reform in the Outer Rim. She's told Luke about this, and he's at least aware of what's going on. Thrawn would want to get rid of Luke Skywalker's Jedi Academy, but the location of the Academy on Ossus was a big secret that Luke kept from almost everyone except Leia, Ahsoka, now Mando. Only a small handful of people know how to find it. It doesn't appear on a lot of the newer maps, but it's on all the Knights of the Old Republic maps. The planet is right above Antolon, the upper right-hand portion of the Outer Rim, near Lothal, where Ezra Bridger is from, not too far from Mandalore, where we just were. So it's very far away from the core worlds where most everyone's attention in the galaxy is on. Usually you go to the Outer Rim to hide out, and Thrawn, for example, was lost in the unknown regions on the complete other side of the galaxy. So that's the other big reason Luke Skywalker wouldn't be super worried about Thrawn, like, okay, that's dangerous, we should deal with that at some point, but he's on the other side of the galaxy, about as far away you could get from Luke Skywalker's academy as you could possibly get. So Luke is thinking, we'll deal with this, but eventually. And at this point, the last couple years, it seems like Ahsoka has just learned that Thrawn has returned through Morgan Elsbeth, and she's trying to prevent him from marshaling the rest of his forces, and that turning into a much bigger problem. But it's still meant to be very early days for that. And while we've been watching the first couple of seasons of The Mandalorian, Thrawn's been pulling strings from afar, influencing the remnants of the Empire along with Moff Gideon. The two of them aren't friends or anything like that. They don't particularly like each other. It's more of a mutual arrangement, we're on the same team kind of thing. They both want the Empire to take over again, but each for their own different reasons. Moff Gideon wants to help the Emperor return. That's part of the whole cloning subplot, like another wrinkle in that. Thrawn secretly hated the Emperor and is glad he's gone. He only wants the Empire to return so he can control it the way he thinks the galaxy should be run, all to the benefit of his own people, the Chiss. His ultimate loyalty is to the Chiss race. Everything he's doing with the Empire his whole time since the beginning after Revenge of the Sith has been to protect his people. So eventually, once he does return in force and starts taking over portions of the galaxy again, all the characters start fighting him in a bigger way. We'll probably see, early theory, Luke Skywalker returning, fighting with Ahsoka, teaming up with Ezra Bridger, Sabine, Grogu, everyone who's force sensitive or a Jedi, and we'll see some really cool lightsaber battles, like a version of what we saw at the end of the Clone Wars with the Battle of Mandalore, with them all teaming up. Picture a live-action version of this. So that's basically what's going on with Luke Skywalker, their general plans for him in this part of the timeline the next couple of years. For those of you that also really like this part of the timeline, the way that Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni are dealing with the Mandalorians and what's happening in Star Wars, this whole heir to the Empire they're doing in live action, the way Jon Favreau talks about it too, this could continue for several more years. Like, they'll just continue making more seasons of The Mandalorian, these other spin-off shows, for as long as people will continue watching them. Like, there's no hard out date that they have. They could wind up making 10 seasons if people continue liking it. So let me know when you want Luke Skywalker to cameo next. Do you want him to cameo on the Ahsoka series later this year, or do you want them to save him for a little bit later when they all team up again? My full Mandalorian Season 3 Episode 5 video will post next. You can click here to watch that. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my other Mandalorian episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. This is the way.